Marine Le Pen has had her immunity from prosecution withdrawn by the European Parliament today. Sergeant Karim, is this a good thing?
Well, it's a procedure that exists within the Parliament, and the proper rules have been followed, and the end result of it is that we have said that we are not going to stand in the way of the French authorities carrying out a proper investigation in accordance with French laws and then arriving at a conclusion as to what they feel is an appropriate course of action. So yes, it is the right thing to do.
On a matter of principle, should MEPs be immune from prosecution?
Well, I think there's a number of cases, and there is a very general wide argument that that provision should not exist. But there has been a number of cases where it's not prosecution but persecution that has actually taken place against MEPs, and it's that sort of scenario that we want to avoid. But where legitimate prosecution is concerned, we should not stand in the way.
Is there a danger that this action has been taken because Le Pen's politics are unpopular?
No, this is obviously the sort of knee-jerk reaction and accusation that Le Pen and her family are now putting forward. But the fact of the matter is that this is the very same family that campaigns against the European Union, against French membership of the European Union, and yet today here they are asking for the European Union to protect them from France's judicial system itself. So it's quite hypocritical.
How do you see the future of this case?
Matter for the French authorities. We simply have said that we are not going to stand in the way of a proper investigation being carried out. We will make no further comment on that. We'll leave it entirely to the due processes of France.
Okay, can I turn now to the issue of surveillance, in particular by the US, and the news that the European Union has found out that the US has been, for want of a better word, snooping. What's your reaction to this?
Well, my initial reaction was, why all the surprise? I mean, I think anybody who's involved in politics, international politics at that, has to expect that there is an element of surveillance that takes place between states. I mean, this is, I think it's a nonsense for anybody to say that they've been caught completely off guard and surprised by this. So that's on the one hand. The other scenario, of course, is the PRISM program, by which the United States of America has been surveying Europeans. This is quite a different matter altogether, because they have not applied those same surveillance techniques to their own citizens and residents, and they are assuring Americans that they have nothing to worry because the program wasn't deemed fit to be applied to them. But yet it is a program that they have deemed fit to apply to Europeans. There are some serious questions that need to be answered here.
Not only with surveillance, but we've also seen it with the inequality of the extradition arrangements. Does it worry you that there might be one rule for American citizens and one rule for citizens of other countries?
Yes, it does, and there have been a number of cases in various countries in the European Union where the US has made applications and taken European citizens, but yet that hasn't been reciprocated when we have required it. We have a number of outstanding cases in the European Union. In Italy, CIA operatives have been convicted, and yet nobody has been produced by the USA. So there's a whole raft of provisions here where there is a very clear imbalance, and it's my feeling that European citizens are now getting to a stage, based upon all of the conversations that I've had and representations that I've received, they are getting to a stage where they are saying, if it's not good enough for the Americans, it's not good enough for us.
What do you see our governments doing, the European member states? Anything?
Well, what worries me about the difference of approach between the US and the European Union is that the European Union very readily divides amongst itself on a very easy basis. And I'm seeing that happening with the Chinese at the moment, playing the game because of the EU-US trade negotiations that are about to become underway. But you see that happen all the time. The US is able to act as one unified voice when it comes to such things. We unfortunately don't do that, and that's our greatest weakness.
Can I turn a moment to Syria? It seems to have slipped off the agenda at the moment. What's the current situation there, and how do you see Europe's stance on it?
In Syria, we currently have an absolutely humongous humanitarian crisis on our hands. You have daily bloodshed taking place by the regime. You have the use of chemical weapons. You have people being shot, killed, and even beheaded openly in the public in streets. Things have become beyond desperate. The numbers of people that we are talking about runs into the millions. The sort of response that has been required has been described by the United Nations as one beyond any proportions it has had to face before. And we are a matter of days away from new complications and complicating factors. I'm hearing reports that one electricity generation plant that is serving 7 million people is due to go offline at any time. And you can just imagine how that is then going to impact. Neighbouring countries, if you look at Lebanon and the situation there and the effect that all of this spillover is having, it's in a very fragile state as it is. Jordan is suffering as a result. Turkey itself is doing, I have to say, an admirable job of taking care of the refugees, but the burdens are huge.
Turning to Turkey for a moment, Europe has stopped speaking to them with regard to their membership application. Do you think this is right? Do you think we should allow Turkey in?
Well, that's one way of describing it, that Europe has stopped talking to them. Technically, that isn't the case. Technically, the chapter has been opened with a date to be set. But in reality, look, the Turks are not stupid. Turkish people will see this for what it is. And this is a German ambush attempt to try and stop Turkish negotiations through the back door. I sincerely hope that they don't succeed in this, because we have got to understand and realise that Turkey can look east as well as look west. It remains in our interest to have Turkey looking towards the European Union.
Can I just turn to the subject of Hamas at the moment? We spoke about this some time ago. What's the current position regarding Hamas? Should it be proscribed?
Yes, at the moment we have quite a disjointed situation so far as Hamas are concerned. And I think what we need above everything else is some clarity as to what is the European position on this. And based upon Hamas's activities, one only has to look not just within the immediate areas where they used to exist before, but look slightly beyond there, and you will see them as operatives carrying out work on their own behalf and as agents as well on behalf of others. It's absolutely imperative that we try and get a unified line on this from Europe.
With the situation in Iran, we've had a new, oh, not us, but they've had a new president elected, a new government. Are you hopeful that things might get better in our relations with Iran?
One has to remain hopeful. There's been a democratic process that has taken place, and we have an election result at the end of it. The Iranian people have elected a new regime, which on the face of it wants to do things in a different way to how they've been conducted over the past two periods of term that they have had governments in place under Mr. Ahmadinejad. And that's a process I think we have to invest in. It brings us closer to the Iranian people, and we are at our strongest when we have the Iranian people working with us.
Finally, we had the G8 last week. Do you see any hope, any good signs for the future in regard to world relations in Europe?
Well, we've got a very complex situation so far as the G8 are concerned, but the one big win from a European front that did come out of that was, of course, the EU-US free trade agreement. I use that term loosely, but that's the term that people recognise. This is really a win-win situation for the US and for the European Union. It's a win-win situation for American citizens and European citizens, and of course as a Brit I see it as a win-win for us also, and that's why the British Prime Minister has made it flagship policy to try and deliver this. We're hoping that the Americans will stick to the commitments that they have given to deliver on a speedy basis. I'm slightly sceptical about the time frame. I think is going to take longer than has been anticipated. It's never easy, having been involved with the EU-India Free Trade Agreement negotiations, which have been ongoing since 2005. I know only too well the complications that can come about. Having said that, I'm committed to it.
And you don't think this row about surveillance will knock it off course at all?
I hope not, but this is another very clear example of divide and rule by third countries. It was very interesting to see how immediately after these negotiations were announced, we saw the Chinese retaliating with proposals of putting further duties on French wines. And I think that has caused a certain amount of nervousness amongst our French leadership. And that's why you're hearing the sorts of arguments coming out from France about calling a halt to the negotiations on the trade agreement. I don't sign up to that at all. Let's not allow third countries to carry out a policy of divide and rule when it comes to the EU.
Sarge Karim, thank you.
Thank you.